Oh, God, yep, no, yeah, Core chose the right coach. What? Why are you playing Mongols, bro? Okay, that's a bit mean. Mongols are looking rough right now, though. It's kind of a tough one, I feel like. You know, this Civ, they got this big buff. They got their go to start the game. Oh, everything is great in the world, KP. Mongols back to #1. Woohoo! Anyone who thinks like that, you deserve the pain you now suffer, filthy Mongol mains. Because right now, Mongols are still kind of a perplexing Civ. I don't know if I'd say they're the worst Civ in the game. There are some maps that they're okay on. But they do not feel like an S-tier Civ on any map that I can think of right now. The go was definitely a step in the right direction, but I think the biggest issue with the Mongols that they're facing is that they're a gold-heavy Civ, as in all the economical benefits around gold, and actually most gold compositions lose out long-term to food and wood. So it's kind of a tough one right now for them. And we've seen a lot of iterations, a lot of changes and builds, right? A lot of people have been focusing on some weird stuff. By the way, don't ask me what this Gur was doing. Scouting Gur, by the way. Very much a scouting Gur back here. But anyway, to the point, because it's a very important one. I think the issue that we're kind of seeing with the Mongols is that they are a Civ that has a lot of gold, but gold doesn't have a purpose hyper long-term, right? I feel like you can talk about Siege, but think about when most games are ending, prolonged feudal, into castle, and people just overwhelm them with cheap crap. And I think the issue with the Mongols is that a lot of people are still trying to find a way of diverting the Civ into feudal focus that isn't just wholly around outposts, especially since the nerfs. And that's where people are kind of tripping over. You'd think they'd be okay because they have this double production idea and they have the passive stone generation. But these perks actually don't compare to a lot of the alternatives. I feel like a lot of the economical benefits of other Civs, like a perfect example is the Abbasids in the mid game, just outdoes them. And wait a second. What's up, Grubby? Wait, did the girl have sheep? No. Oh, you mean can you rally them to it? Yes, you can. Wait, that's actually a good question. Oh, I get what you mean now. So if you pack up a girl and move it around, can you send sheep following it? Is that what you mean? I mean, that's kind of neat to think about once you get your hands on the increased movement speed, right? Not so much before, but if you get your hands on superior mobility... Okay, no. Let's stop theory crafting this right now. This is a dumb strategy. We're about to suggest researching superior mobility and then sending your girl around the map as an extra scout. But you have to wait 45 seconds. So I don't think it's going to be it. Oh, man. That would be amazing, though. So I guess that's why maybe send the girl back here, scouting plus picking up the back sheep. That's actually not a bad idea. I'd expect it out of someone called Astral Abuser. Look at the abuse things. It's quite a cool little idea, right? Because I think where that could be useful is especially on maps like Frisian Marshes. Remember on Frisian Marshes, there's a lot of sheep that spawn near your base. You could send the Gerd to pick them up and then send your Khan out into the midfield. And still go an extra scout to send to your opponent's base in case he didn't get his own sheep. So, little kind of pocketed strategies, small details, but often, actually these tiny one-ups in the early game can give you a big enough lead, especially with the focus being wholly on feudal at the moment. Right now, the focus on Dark Age, because you can see BC trying to get the gold required to get his hands on the goodies. Fresh foodstuffs will be there once he techs up, as it looks like he's got enough gold coming back in, but the outpost is now going to block out both the stone and the gold. Now, it's not the end of the world because BC can play north side, but you haven't got wheelbarrow and you'd have to go out pretty far. And you can't buy wheelbarrow because you only have enough gold to get your hands... Wait. Okay, yeah. Wait. Oh, God. He doesn't have enough gold. Oh, no. Right now, honestly, you just kind of feel like Peter Griffin, this is a boo-boo that won't stop stinging right now. He's 3 gold short. If I am Wham in the situation, which, I mean, my hair's not quite that long yet, I think you could just build 2 more spears and you kind of block him out if he ever tries to go for this. That being said, actually, if you just get your tech up and get the arrow slits, it might be good enough in itself. And this is frustrating. The Beastie, this delay, this doesn't feel good. One of the big perks of the Abbasids is meant to be your ability to instantly get into fresh foodstuffs. Also notice that because Beastie is up against the Mongols and because he was worried about this outpost rush, he didn't go immediately onto the berries. The reason he didn't do this is because although he get great gathering rates, he would be giving over 25 food and gold fairly fast. And as a result, he was wholly just relying on getting fresh foodstuffs, playing compact, and being able to budget himself on limited sheep instead until he had a military force. Well, that budget just got a little bit thinner. All right, turns out half of the food produce he brought into storage here was out of date. And now you're going to find that these sheep will not go as far as you once dreamed. Instead, he has to get very early on into those archers, and it looks like he is going to be playing out with an outpost onto the outcropping. Love this play out of Beastie. What this does is it secures both the berry patch and the stone outcropping. Good reaction here. Wham, let's see what his reaction is going to be, because we open up this game talking about the idea that the Mongols are struggling right now to kind of find their presence between feudal and castle, because a lot of the potentially viable strats, or rather the flexibility within your strategy, heavily relies on gold. But gold units don't feel ideal right now. I can't believe I'm saying this, right? Like, oh, what, Siege doesn't feel good, Pigeon? Oh, what, like, you know, Knights don't feel good? They're great in the right situation and the right time, but the problem is, like, a lot of these prolonged feudals lead to bulked armies of 30, 40 units. And when you're at 34 units, like, oh, you've built 2 Lancers, you rush Castle Age. Well, I've got 20 Spearmen and 20 Archers. I can block you out and pick you apart. And it's just cheap units, right? It's food and wood. That's the difference I'm talking about. And also keep in mind, the real economical benefit of the Mongols doesn't get unlocked until Castle. So it's not like we're, you know, we can talk about Yam and how great it is for the movement speed, but it's not like you're getting this big inflation right in feudal straight away, right? It's not like getting fresh foodstuffs or Golden Gate. Wait. Speaking of, yeah, okay, there we go. I was about to say, speaking of fresh foodstuffs, I noticed you got the gold. A little bit of a delay there. We'll finally react, and it looks like he's going to get into it now. And the timing on this actually still isn't too bad for Beastie. This slowdown is frustrating. We talked about the lack of food, but because he got this outpost up on the north side, because Wham wasn't able to invest in another villager to set up an outpost here, he's actually very comfortable in this game now, because he's going to get fresh foodstuffs around the time he'll get what he needs for the second TC. However, he's going to fight a little bit for it right now, as Wham is going to dive in underneath the outpost. And we'll regret it quickly. This delays BC by an extra 10, 15 seconds, but reality here is now the TC can be placed over towards the deer and the berries, at which stage BC's game is incredibly comfortable, actually. He's going to have access to a ridiculous surplus of food. Think about the numbers we're actually dealing with here, right? Like, we're talking about, was it 2,450 food on the deer, 1,500 on the berries before he upgrades them, that is, of course. Going to add an extra 100 into each, so he's actually going to be up at 2,100. And then, once again, 2,100. This is a very comfortable area for Beastie. This is exactly the type of reason why people love playing Lipany with the Abbasids. Like, you get these tight spawns on the berries, and it creates this ripple effect, this kind of knock-on effect of, I'll build a TC here, and then I'll build a TC here. And all of a sudden, you've just got all this inflated food income at your disposal. And all he needs to do is get the last of that stone. You can see the wood is starting to accrue. The reason he doesn't have the wood required yet is the investment into archers, but there's many archers and spears. It should be very difficult now for Wham to do any damage. And there is a question around why some berry patches are bigger and smaller. It's a good question. I think it is at least weighed to be ones away from your base are bigger. That's why. So, but the problem is, like, how does it justify this is the big question mark. Like, you're seeing that this looks very weird, right? Like, the way it's done the formation is because one player started slightly on to the west side and one to the east side, it's given a home corner and then placed small berry patches there. So, like, the small berry patches, for example, are here. Wait, what? No, they're not here. They're here and here. So, basically, the closest ones to your base should be small, and then as you get into midfield, they get fat. This is another reason why the Abbasid feels really good. It's not just that there's more berry patches on this map than most other maps, it's that most of them are actually 8 stacks instead of 6. Now, I'm not going to say that the plan always works 100%. I have seen generations where sometimes it's not the further away berry patches that are 8 stacks. Somehow it's the closest. But overall, the generation for the most always prioritizes further away berry patches as your 8 stacks. You are seeing some outliers here, though. This one, to me, is a big, fat outlier. The ones in the far corner safe should probably be a 6 stack. The ones in the midfield, in my opinion, should always be 8 stacks. Sorry, a lot of janky moving around. I actually just realized I didn't change my mouse sensitivity. There we go. Bring it down now. God, I hate observing. If you haven't noticed by now, I'm a little bit of an Energizer bunny, so I like to move around a lot. I'm a little bit all over the place. When you're an observer, you're not allowed to do that. Well, what we're going to observe now is Wham is going to be going up the castle. We talked about whether he'd want to stay long feudal, and the answer was a resounding no. The reason he didn't want to stay here, by the way, is because BC's already set up an insulated defense point. And also, BC isn't aggressing him. So Wham's seeing this as a win, as best he can get one. He just wants to tech up into Lancers to jump into quickly. I honestly think that this does feel a bit rough to me. I don't necessarily think BC's going to suffer that much. He's going to see the tech up and probably double down the production buildings and then build a feudal army until he's ready. And the thing is, BC's almost ready already, right? He's already got Camel Archer, which is going to negate a lot of your power. This is another thing that I don't like about people rushing Castle Age against the Abbasids, is if you think of most of the Castle Rush builds, they feature Knights as a key component. But you're up against a Civ that can reduce those damage points by 20%. That's a pretty big hit. And it means that you can't actually easily pick apart villages. You can't easily take fights in the midfield. And also, like, on top of that, let's keep in mind you're up against the Abbasids who have spears with phalanx. Like, there's so many reasons to not go Lancers against the Abbasids. But it always just feels so good when you can Castle Age first. And it's why we're going to see it out of Wham. The other reason we're going to see it is because what are your other options here? If you build Magadai, you're building Magadai against Camel Archers. Magadai will not win that fight. Even against normal archers, they will not win that fight. So you really don't have any choice but Lancers with gold-based units at this point. He could go for Man-at-Arms, and actually Man-at-Arms might have been the way, but I think the issue in Wham's mind, and this is kind of the bait of arriving first in Castle, is you got Castle first, so you want to use it, right, to the maximum. And you should be able to do that with Raiders, but credit where credit is due to Beastie, he's done a good job of eliminating a lot of those variables by walling himself in as he is. You can see right now, there's just a funnel point down the center. And it means that any raid in attempted by Wham is going to be ID'd very early on. And you can already see a few spearmen guarding in these choke points. In fact, in the next minute or two, you are not going to be able to actually weave in with Lancers at all. In fact, the only cavalry that's going to be in the backside is few horsemen that already got there. Speaking of those spears, there they are now. The brace comes out. Lancers will try to overwhelm, but you can see the damage. It just doesn't feel like a good trade to lose a Lancer like this. He'll at least make his way in now as more spearmen are reacting, but limited space to move around, and the Camel Archer is on the way, and this is going to be the big difference maker. You just saw that 3 Lancers could beat 2 spears, only losing 1 Lancer. Not exactly great math for the Lancer player there. But the Camel Archer now changes everything. A 20% reduction in damage means these spears are going to get a few extra pokes out. It's probably going to be 2 Lancers for 2 spears. As long as you don't tank with the Camel Archer. As long as you don't... Oh, God. I mean, in fairness, he did absorb fire for a while there. And this is once again a good exchange for Beastie. Because Wham is now just headbutting this area with Lancers and doing nothing. I don't like that Wham is doubling down this area, but this is the issue. This is the trap. When you go for Lancers like this, you don't have any other option. There is a potential upside, and you're seeing it here, is that he's already into the Shamans, and he can now pick up the relics, but he can only get 3. This isn't going to be a surge forward in the eco department, because 2 of them are already blocked out and controlled by Beastie. Man, this Camel Archer is so annoying, actually. So Khan's going to live. The good news is that Wham can see what's going to be coming next. The bad news is I don't know if he can react to it right now. I don't disagree with this play. I actually really like that he went for the TC. I don't think you have any other option right now. You need to try and eco-inflate. Because what Wham has now identified is that this rush at Castle hasn't achieved much. He hasn't got much value for it so far. So he needs to get eco value. He needs to extend that beyond just the relics. Right now, Beastie caught sleeping a little here. Started to switch up into crossbows and get more spears out in the meantime. In fact, it looks like he slowed down spearman production for a little bit there. He's now going to react. Camel Archer buying enough time, and Wham getting baited into the wrong fight here. I think he needed to dive into the eco line. Instead, he goes after the troops, and that means it's going to be a throwaway again for Wham. Heavy damage told. We'll try to back away just in time. And the good news, at least for Wham, is he does have a few shamans, so he will eventually be able to heal these guys up. Bad news is that this, once again, doesn't feel like a good exchange. We have to think about like the military investment in cost. right, we can see on the numbers, Wham's doing phenomenal, right? 24 killed, 12 lost. Pretty damn good, right? But Beastie is investing a third in most of these troops, right? The spears are 80 compared to 240. Crossbows are 120 compared to 240. And yet, they're actually exchanging reasonably well. And now with the veterancies coming through, this is where things can get really uncomfortable for Wham. Having said that, Beastie is still being a cheapskate. I'm just going to point that out now. The lack of spears, like he should definitely have been amassing an extra few spears here to keep himself ahead. I think what happened is that Beastie had gaps in his food gathering when he was moving across these new eco lines. Now that they're set up, he should be able to inflate his spearman count, but that gap was exploited by Wham. Still a very high risk exploitation. The reason why Wham is willing to throw away lances like this is his goal is simply to keep Beastie out of his base. Not in terms of military aggression, because that wouldn't come quickly. It's in terms of vision. He doesn't want Beastie to know that he's eco-inflating like this with the TCs. He also doesn't want Beastie to know that there's a lack of pastures, that he's playing pocket ecos. Because if that info gets revealed, Beastie can exploit that with lances of his own. And right now, because Beastie doesn't have that info, notice that everything he's building is static. Yes, he's getting a few cam archers out, but it's for the aura. He's only really building crossbows and spears, which means that he can't rotate for pocket ecos, where he otherwise would if he knew they existed. Pretty cool play. I love this. This is what I call variance play. I think it's very important for Civs like the Mongols if they want to try and get a one-up. In fact, I've been a long time kind of like preacher about this. If you're playing Mongols and you already dictate midfield, you should be playing villagers into midfield. If you aren't, you're just being way too defensive. Like, you're playing to survive instead of playing to win. Yeah, you could have pastures and have sheep gathering at home safely, but alternatively, you could have deer with superior gathering rates or boar with even better gathering rates. You want to be utilizing these. That's before we even get to the discussion that pastures cost 150 wood each and take time to return their investment. You know, you have to look at the Mongols similarly to how you look at any Civ trying to avoid a farm transition, because it is comparative. And although you can say pastures like are a little bit more efficient than farms when you think about like the numbers involved, overall, like the impact on your scalability militarily between the 10 and 25 minute marks is still heavy for that pasture investment. And it's why I'm very happy to see Wham playing out onto these pocket ecos instead. And in fact, he can even exploit this one right here. I'd love to see him play boar. It's kind of in the center where the battlefield's going to be, but it's right next to your secondary TC. And you're going to have disposable villages at this rate. Looks like we are going to get relic gathering from Beastie. I love this really big switch up from the Abbasids as well. We didn't really see it much in the past. They always seem to forget about it. But I think Abbasid players have gotten better at looking for a mosque in their build. I think the issue that this Civ has suffered a lot is for a long time, they relied heavily on the idea of siege on the start of castle. So they didn't really have extra wood or gold to invest in the mosque. It wasn't part of the build order. But now that they make wiggle room for it, sure, it maybe delays like your aggressive timing if you want to go into siege by a minute or two. But the upside is infinite gold for the rest of the game. On a Civ that actually is very comfortable playing into the hyper late game, it makes sense to actually enable that late game further with something that will scale into it. C4 knocking at your door, as it looks like Ram will get rid of the forward outpost. Ram's little villager is not very happy about it. I like the outpost going up from BC. He just wants to block out the win condition. If you look at the map, you can see what Wham set himself up for. Doesn't want to go into the base. He wants to control the mid-map and have his hands on the sacred sites, but that generation on the high point is the BC's benefit. And a downside, really, for Wham. He's got enough lances. He could think about rotating around, but if he moves the entire army down here, he has to go through this choke point first. Which is going to put him very close to BC's base and at risk of being flank attacked. More Beastie. Well, we know he loves to do this, right? He's got an inflated eco, it makes sense. He did go for a third TC on the backside in the end. So he definitely has disposable villages. And his goal here is now just racing down the limited resources. Because both of them are playing off of it instead of extending the longevity in the game via farms and pastures. Like wall has at least been breached, and Wham prepping himself for a strong push in soon, but the Mangonel counter is on the way here, and remember, there is a lot of crossbows being built by Wham. Springer's being rushed up. I actually love watching these two Civs go at it. I'm a big fan of Mongol English, as long as the game doesn't go too deep, because you get really fun kind of back and forth aura battles that feel balanced on both sides, and then the other one is actually Mongol Abbasid because of the siege creep. The siege creep that can occur on both sides. BC showing you how little he cares about his fresh food stuff villagers. Right, BC just looked, he's like, ah, it's okay, it's just 4 people less to feed. We barely feed them anyway, 25 food, lol. That's why all these Abbasid villages work so hard, by the way. That's how Golden Age works. Golden Age is quite a deceptive concept. 15% gathering rate. But the reason why the people gather so much quicker is because what you do as the Overlord is like, that wood line, you throw a loaf of bread in there. These people don't get to eat. They only take 25 food to make. You don't think that they're doing these type of tricks to get them to work harder? Like, oh yeah, by the way, we baked a cake and stuck it in the middle of this gold vein. What are you, Mr. Beast? I don't care. Start mining. Whoop, whoop. Aren't you glad that I'm the lore master of AoE 4? Who else would provide you these type of insights? Probably someone after 10 shots of vodka. Anyone, in fact, after 10 shots of vodka. We're all trying to go up again from Beastie. He will be able to get it up, but there's a little wiggle room, a little way in. Mistakes are made. Beastie, what the hell? Oh, no. Lancers are in, armies reacting. Mangonel is in place, so it looks like Wham needs to actually get himself an entry point, an exit point as well. Woo. The curse of every player ever. The one slab of wall that just doesn't go up. Now, luckily for Beastie, limited torch damage coming in due to the outpost will slow down the assault. And it's exactly why Beastie's able to react quick enough. Mangonel trying to push the crossbows back here. A dive in from the Lancers to snipe it out as the Spearmen now arrive. Crossbow count definitely higher for Wham, but the Spearmen could overwhelm it with the Phalanx, especially if they get between him and the choke point, which is what he's trying to do right now. And that's why Wham's going to have to back off here. Love that idea on both sides. You saw what BC was targeting. He wanted to get where the wall was. In fact, if he deleted this part of the wall, he still could have wrapped around, and this whole crossbow army would have died. Instead, good maneuver away by Wham, but still could be decent damage done. However, with the full network of outposts and the Yam speed there, this is where this turns into a bad fight for Beastie. Meanwhile, crossbows were forced to chase after the Lancers. A few Lancers will get through and look for damage onto the eco. Beastie, that eco lead that he built up, isn't looking as healthy as it once was. Nice maneuvers by Wham as Wham utilizes his movement speed and positioning to take a good fight against Beastie. Yeah, looking back at that moment, I actually think if Beastie had deleted the wall, he could have had that surround. And you can see how difficult it is for Beastie in this situation due to the outposts. You know, his outpost delayed the siege in, but the outposts of Wham prevent a wraparound. And this is why Beastie might consider switching into a few horsemen. You aren't up against spears yet. In fact, if you look at the composition, you haven't seen a single Rax unit push yet by Wham. Yeah, he had that Rax super early on that built spears, but since then it hasn't been utilized at all, and there's only one. So horsemen could actually be a good shout here. But I think the issue for Beastie is, unless he can get himself pop capped, he doesn't want to go horsemen because they're too pricey. That's why you're seeing him go for spears and crossbows, right? Because he goes spears, crossbows, he actually has surplus inventory to buy into siege. If he went for horsemen, like, that's his only form of anti-siege. And sure, it'll counter out the crossbows, but if spears do suddenly arrive, like, you're kind of done. Maybe when we get the farms fully set up. In fact, how many is he up to now? Yeah, I think once BC gets up to about 45 farms, we'll see him go hard into horsemen. In fact, another key detail. Yeah, no military wing. I wonder if he maybe did. That would have also explained it with the boot camp, but another thing to consider down the line is if he keeps this composition we reach in Imperial, the Abbasids are very, very strong. Their eco gets incredibly potent in the later phase of the game, especially with the Golden Age 3 unlock. And on top of that, you're talking about a Civ that's going to get access to the boot camp with the extra 50% on all his units, while they still remain ridiculously cheap. We see kind of a stalemate setting in here. Okay. I'm sure there's a few people in the chat that can relate to this. When you're up against Beastie and he does this. This is just like 101 playing against Beastie lessons right now. This guy loves to absorb map. It's like, honest to God, his nickname should just be the Hoover. Because he sucks up everything on the map. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a long-lost child of Dyson at this stage. He's so good at doing this, and it just goes completely unnoticed. And long term, this matters a lot, because it means just Wham is at a loss of resources. He's going to run out sooner. Beastie trying to get the stone walls up. Will be stone walled by Wham, though. Still has that keep to stabilize him, and admittedly, enough stone walls going up here to try to cause a funnel point towards the range of the keep. Could be a problem for Wham. You see as he comes in range. Dive through that I would not advise here. Needs to get the trebuchets in position to take this down, but he's fearful of the spring count. The spring count is not with him right now. Actually, I say that. He has got 6. Wow. I love how we still have this issue, by the way, where Springald's show up in different queues if they were Uvu'd. Relic, please. Like, sure, they're cloned, but clones are people too. I would have thought the extended Star Wars universe would have taught that to us. Wow. Once more into the breach. We've been here before. This time, he focuses his good old Trebs on that outpost. Won't waste time torching it down, but that does buy time for BC to build up the defensive keep, and this keep will be going up quick enough. Army also able to shuffle across. In fact, Springald's, yeah, they can go in this choke point. If they use the wood line, they can snipe out all the siege, and Wham won't notice it until he gets shot at. It's a pretty crafty move. In fact, BC hasn't even fully committed in that area. A little bit surprised by this. It was a lack of vision that's the issue, right? If the outpost is still up, he can do this, but without the outpost, he just doesn't have the vision in the area. However, the keep is about to give some vision over. Meanwhile, behind this, BC already halfway through his tech up, and Wham was looking to reach up as well. I wonder if he realizes how far ahead BC is right now. Now, of course, Wham will be able to rush up ahead of time. He doesn't have to wait 1 minute 45 seconds, but the upside for Beastie is when his tech up completes, and this is actually a kind of underrated element of the Abbasids, by the way. When their tech up completes, they're not necessarily weak, right? You have to notice their tech up underway. If you wait until you hear that ding, that tech up, they've had 1 minute and 45 seconds to gather resources since. And all their villages were working. That's the difference, right? Like, when you rush up like this, sure, you as the Mongol player are going to get your tech up quicker, but you just idled almost 20 villages to do this. And you very quickly built this up, which means you just got the resources, and you probably don't have much of a reserve. I think this is a very underrated element of late-game Abbasids that allows them to be a lot stronger when making the Imperial transition than other Civs, unless their opponent notices the addition of a wing on the House of Wisdom. And of course, with this layout, there was no way that Wham was ever going to see, as both players are now sitting up in Imperial looking pretty. Straight away, BC will go for that boot camp. He's stuck with the composite of infantry, which means 15% more health on all of them. Yay him. On the other side, we're going to see Wham continue to rely upon his lances. And also setting up monastic shrines. Get that good old double production going. That makes sense as well. You always want the monastic shrines whenever you get your hands on the white stupa. That's when it really has the value to it. I actually like this play by Beastie. He peeled off a small group of man-at-arms. His goal now shouldn't be to have them survive, but to go deep. If he wraps north side, he's going to draw the entire army away, and that could offer up an opportunity to march straight into the main base. I don't expect him to take it just because he's playing static comp, so he'd be a little bit exposed. But this also, in the meantime, would buy him time to get better defenses up at home. Man-at-arms will be quickly cleaned up. Just in time for Wham to move up here for the gold. Really, the only gold that Wham can get is up in this area, right? The small gold vein, the big one. Of course, he does get 50% extra, so he's going to have 18,000 rather gold here. Will last him quite a while. Beastie looking a little bit more limited, unless he can get access to the central gold vein, which they're both contesting at the moment. But love this sneak out. This is the maneuver I was talking about, right? Like, he pulled all the forces north, and now he moves in to get rid of the outpost. The importance of this is now Yam isn't there. So, should Wham misplace himself slightly, you can wrap on him. You can block him out from a retreat. However, if you do block him out right now, keep in mind you are up against a healthy mixed comp of crossbows and archers. So he does have the means to take down these spears. This is where I'd love to see Beastie rely more heavily on man-at-arms. Or we could go Horseman. I think we're going Horseman, guys. Biology has been queued. I would expect a stable line. Yep, there it I would indeed expect a stable line, yes. We have arrived at that point in the game. You are in the hyper late game. Seems dangerous. What would you do to win the hyper late game? How about unlimited Horsemen? And with an income that should inflate over 2k in the next 2 minutes, I think that's quite feasible for Beastie. You can see he's hard on the wood right now, but that's mainly because he needs additional wood for the stables. But afterwards, I would expect him to pivot more on the food, just because horsemen are quite the burden there. The thing about horsemen at this stage, like you can see, they're 100 food, 20 wood. We always knew this, but let's keep in mind you're the Abbasids with a 20% increase to production rates. So you're only taking 13 seconds to push each of these lads out. And that means that you need to have a very fat economy to keep the war machine going indefinitely. If you can, that 20% superior push rate is going to overwhelm your opponent. I think Beastie is looking to overwhelm in different ways. We already saw him just torch over in this area and has drawn the attention now of Wham. But if you notice, he's got a lot of stone in reserve. I actually think that Beastie's plan here is to stage a full push with horsemen and then behind it build up trench warfare with keeps. So the whole idea is every time he pushes horsemen in and draws Wham to the back of his base, he moves in deeper at the front of the base with the keeps. It's pretty crafty, actually. Calming moment. Both of them kind of just getting to have their cake right now, right? Like, Beastie snuck all the back resources. Still got fat wood lines in reserve. In fact, you can see he's just been munching through these. It's so safe for him. On the other side, Wham is still getting all the gold he requires. Jokes being made about a wonder game. I don't think so, Grubby. That depends. Does Beastie really want to lose this game? There's the keep going up as expected. The fight going to be forced here. Mangonels not really doing the damage they were looking for here. Crossbows moving in with the spears as well. Is going to push back against Wham. No way you can stop this keep going up. This keep is big because it's going to be close to in range of the gold line. However, he needed to be a little bit closer. The problem was he couldn't get close without risking the villagers all dying to the cannon fire. However, now with this keep here, he could build up a little bit of siege and dive in and take out all these static defenses. And you can see he's starting to do that now. Crossbows targeting the villagers. I don't know where the hell they're going. To heaven. Or hell. Actually, he's a Mongol picker. They're going to hell. We'll back off now with the crossbows, forcing out the idol. A wraparound coming in for the Lancers, but Lancers diving in on the Springles, but the crossbows will protect. The damage is going to be returned towards these Lancers. Is going to make it an unfair fight in favor of the Abbasids. The Abbasids that do also have the healing coming out from the medical centers, which means these crossbows last so much longer. The boiling oil ensuring as well that Wham cannot dive. And this fight looking pretty damn dicey for Wham. A bad fight for him to be able to be forced rather to take. In fact, I think he's lost the entire army right now. I'm very worried for Wham. Wham, like, this is the problem. He spent all that time on the western flank cleaning this up. He invested a bunch of Lancers there, the Trebs. He didn't have his full composite in position to block this keep. And because this keep goes up, he is now blocked out of gold that he absolutely requires in this game. Without that gold, he can't keep this afloat. He's building Lancers, crossbows, and Springhawks. That's a heavy investment. And this move by Beastie may have just given him full control of the game. He moves in for the gold as well. He says, I also need siege, my friend. I also need more crossbows. But at the heart of it, I'm all about this spearman and horseman comp. How unexpected. We've arrived 30 plus minutes into the game and Pokey Stick on horseback is going to probably win the game. Never seen this one before. And you can see how trivial it is to get through these outposts. The Mongols, honestly, the Mongols were definitely hit as hardest by the outpost change. Other civs can at least fortify. They don't even have the option. And sure, cannons can still feel strong, but with an extra 250 health missing, so easy to torch down these buildings. You see now the reaction coming out from Wham. He says, you're right, Pigeon. Pokey sticks do win games. Yeah, but these pokey sticks are good against you, sir. Get the hell out. Respect the phalanx. Hand cannoniers are at least in the mix, but the problem with hand cannons being in the mix for Wham is he just got blocked out the other gold. Oh, that's a full retreat. This is looking pretty ripperino right now. Wham has no access to gold anymore, and he was just caught in the middle of a hand cannoneer switch. His crossbow line has been cut down somewhat as well. And Beastie has all the gold in the world. Just look at the numbers right now. Wham's the little boy asking for more. Please, sir. Please. The only thing you're going to get tonight, son, is the belt. Beastie is ready to give your ass a whooping here. Full pivot reaction to the north side, but as soon as you rack north, guess what? A flank attack is coming in, mainly horsemen now. And what are you vulnerable against here? Well, with a 80-20 split towards range, I think horseman is the thing. Yeah, that would definitely be it. The wrap around the backside. Wham caught completely out of position and overwhelmed here. Spearman back up, coming in, deal with the remaining horsemen that Wham are built into, but this is going to be an absolute rout. A one-sided affair. Remember, the Phalanx and the additional range are able to stab over the top of the horsemen, not through them. Peta supporters, do not worry. There's no animal abuse going on here. There is definitely a lot of Whamimal abuse going on, though, as this poor little Astral abuser is looking abused right now. Army is completely decimated. Gold barely accessible. You can see he's trying to rush it down now, but it all feels for naught here. BC at 200 pop cap at all times. Wham shrunk down to barely half of that. GG will get called. BC, no. Stop hovering. And I mean, that is actually the course of this game. That this was credit to BC and the style he plays. Like, he sucked up so much this map. He understood where the key points of pressure were required. He took away berries, forcing a transition early for Wham. He snuck around the backside to get the reserve stone off the table to get access to the gold. And then he takes a pivotal fight with a keep drop with his 3.5k stone around that central gold to block Wham out of any chance coming in this. And the reason that's such an important difference is notice what Wham was doing here. Transition into hand cannoneers, into these premium units. If he reaches critical mass, there is a possible way that he can actually start to breach in and snowball into the base of Beastie. It's not guaranteed because of the production rates of cheap crap from Beastie, but their option is on the table. But it requires the gold, and that's why you saw Beastie strike there. And the reason he was able to strike there was the pull on the left side. He threw villagers into the trebuchet line at the back of the Mongol base, which forced Wham to react with his own siege line as well as his lancers. Now, the siege being there is bad enough. The lancers as well means he doesn't have enough troops to dive the keep. And without having the siege there, he has no way of killing the keep before it goes up when it takes more damage upon construction. That key detail gave Beastie the transition point, the surge into the midfield that he needed to take control of this game, and it was a pretty crafty way to do it.